Moved.
Second.
Barb. All right, Chris has moved and Barb has seconded to approve the agenda as published. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. The motion to approve the published agenda has passed. And do we have any public participants tonight? Okay, no one has registered as a public participant for this evening's meeting. Moving on to District Administrator's Report. Dr. Mueller?
Yeah, I have two items tonight. The first one is I'm very excited to report that we have a great partnership between the Village of Holmen, the Town of Holland, the La Crosse County, and the school district, where there will be a roundabout going in out at our intersection of McHugh and Briggs here. I know this has been talked about, and we've been listening to our community members and our students for many, many years. At least since I've arrived here, I've been hearing about the traffic congestions out here at the intersection. So we're very excited that all these municipalities have come together along with the school district to make this become a reality. So the timeline for this is right now they're in the development of designing what that will look like in that intersection. With all parties involved, it will be designed right now and expected to be finalized in January of 2023. And then this next summer should start to go into place. So just wanted to give that update today. And then the other announcement I have, as you see, we don't have a full board sitting up here yet. We have a vacancy right now, and applications, we're accepting those through August 2nd. So if you're interested in being a part of the board, please apply. So thank you.
All right, moving on to recognition and thank you. Dr. Mueller will introduce building principals or the representatives to honor the 2021-2022 Friends of Education.
Yeah, so very excited. This is one of our most favorite nights of the year here. Each year, we ask each school to nominate someone who made a positive contribution to the education of its students in the school district of Holmen, yet it is not an employee of the district. The criteria for this includes time commitment, assistance within the school, out-of-school activities, advancement of educational programs for students. Really, this person has had a very great impact on many lives. So I'm very excited tonight to have each of our building administrators come forth and introduce their friend of education. And we're going to start this evening with Mr. Sackett, and he will introduce who that is. And after he's done, he'll ask those here representing the individuals to come forth, and we'll get a picture together and so forth. So, Mr. Sackett.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we honor our Friends of Education from around the district, so I'd like to congratulate each of our honorees for the great work and your friendship that you've provided in each of our buildings and areas to our student, staff, and the greater Holmen community. Tonight, I would like to posthumously honor and recognize our HHS Friend of Education, Dr. Jeff Steffen. Katie, Jeff's wife, and several friends have joined us this evening, and many more family and friends are watching virtually. I would also like to acknowledge Steve Egrich for supporting me in writing much of what I'm going to share tonight. So thank you, Steve. Dr. Steffen served as a professor in exercise and sports science at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. He serves as director of the UWL Adventure Program and the Physical Education Graduate Program from 1995 to 2015. Jeff, Katie, and their family lived in Holmen, and their three children, Kristen, Peter, and Paul, all attended school in the school district of Holmen. From the time that the Steffens moved to Holmen, Jeff was always working closely with our physical education department, district-wide, and students. Jeff volunteered countless hours assisting our district's physical education teachers with curriculum writing, implementation, and assessment. He provided numerous workshops and staff development opportunities for our physical education teachers. He organized and led team building activities for our athletic teams. He created a teacher exchange program in which UWL graduate students and school district of home and physical education teachers would co-serve each other. He co-wrote a Future Fisherman Foundation physical education grant in which the district was awarded $5,000 to implement fishing into the curriculum in 2006. He was an integral part of the Carol M. White Physical Education Federal Grant, focusing on adventure education and outdoor pursuits. He served as Holman's PEP grant evaluator for 2 years, and Jeff has mentored several of our teachers during their graduate coursework. At least 7 of our current K-12 physical education teachers received their master's degree in Jeff's program. Jeff's influence and guidance is one of the main reasons for the successful adventure and outdoor pursuits programs in our district. He was instrumental in developing the curriculum for our K-12 adventure program, most notably assisting in the development of our training manual for rock climbing and our policies and procedures manual for the challenge course. He assisted in the planning and leading of countless outdoor pursuits, including canoeing, hiking, snowshoeing, ice fishing, winter camping and shelter building, spelunking, yes, for those of you who don't know, that's caving, rock climbing, biking, and geocaching. After he retired, he continued to volunteer in our district on a regular basis, specifically with our outdoor pursuits field trips. On behalf of Holman High School, our district's physical education teachers, and generations of lives impacted, it is a privilege to share this recognition and honor of Dr. Jeff Steffen with Katie Steffen and the Steffen family. We are humbled by his model of servant leadership, and we were grateful to call him a friend of education.
You want the whole family to come up?
Yeah, yes. And we also have something for. Also, our board. Yeah, she'll give it to her.
Very nice. Thank you. Three, two, one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that amazing start, Mr. Sackett. Okay, next we have Mr. Vogler for Holman Middle School.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Once again, I would also like to thank all of our Friends of Education for being here. This is a great night to see all of the community involvement that we have here in the community and the support for our schools. Tonight, I'm here to recognize Barb Anderson on behalf of the Holman Middle School as our Friend of Education. As president of the Holman Area Historical Society, Barb was a driving force behind publishing our 8th grade students' narratives related to their experiences during the 2020 school year in a book, Living History: Holman 8th grade students respond to 2020. Helping to publish a book of student works would have been more than a huge feat, an unbelievable opportunity, especially when working with 8th grade students. But Barb did not stop there. She helped organize virtual meetings with other members of the Holman Area Historical Society to help students learn more about how to write these events from their perspective, but also about how significant events in the past have impacted the speakers working with our students. She organized a book delivery to HMS for our students to receive their published works, along with delivering snacks for them to enjoy during this time. She helped organize a family and community night at the Holman Area Community Center for our students to read their final narratives to families and to the public. Finally, Barb helped organize the distribution of these books to be placed in the Holman Public Library, the Holman Middle School Library, and other locations available to the public. We would like to thank Barb for going above and beyond to provide this amazing opportunity and experience for our 8th grade students at Holman Middle School. Thank you very much, Barb.
Come on up, Barb. Thank you.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah. This for you. There we go. He's a professional photographer. He's awesome. All right, thank you so much. All right. Next up, we have Ms. Falver for Evergreen Elementary School.
Thank you for the opportunity to honor and recognize somebody that is a friend of education at Evergreen. However, I must start by saying I liked it much better when we held a microphone and they had to stand by us, so people weren't staring at me, but they were staring at our friends during this little spiel. So tonight I am here to recognize Trisha Johnson, who is in the back with her son Knox and daughter Abby. Trisha has been the board president for our PTO for the last 5 years and been a part of our PTO since Abby started in kindergarten, and she will now be going into 5th grade. Trisha has been instrumental in raising funds for Evergreen. We have been proud for as long as I've been there and years prior to that to say that we don't have any fees. We haven't had any fees because our PTO covers things like student assignment notebooks and field trip costs and expenses. And they've always been very focused on giving back to our school community. And so Trisha is somebody that is integral in continuing to make that happen. This past year specifically, she helped to lead the charge in raising over $75,000 toward new playground equipment, which was no small task. Trisha also spends time volunteering in our schools. She's even coordinated her parents coming in one year to show original artifacts to students firsthand. So as you can see, Trisha not only spends hours of time outside of school, but also comes to school, volunteers through junior achievement, and is just a positive person who always has a smile on her face. And no matter how crazy busy she is, possibly packing one house, getting ready to move to another, in between sports, she's here tonight just to smile along with us and accept this recognition. So please join me in giving Trisha a big thank you and a round of applause.
Come on up, and your family members can come on up too. You got to come up and celebrate. Thank you. Carefully. Yeah. Thanks. We've done this in so long, we forgot.
Is it in the thing there?
Oh, there we go. Cute. That's cute. Oh, that is darling. Next, I am going to be representing for Prairie View this night, and Dana Johnston is our friend of education for Prairie View, and she wasn't able to be here with us tonight, so I would just like to honor her and share a little bit about her. So Dana Johnston has been a devoted friend of education at Prairie View during the 21-22 school year. As our grade level was planning out for our WIN block, we discovered we needed more adult assistance. We reached out to our parents, and a handful responded. Dana was one of the individuals who volunteered to assist with WIN. What that means is what I need, so helping students with what they need. She volunteered twice a week and facilitated learning in several different capacities. She assisted with math and comprehension strategies throughout the year and filled in for small group enrichment activities. What impressed us the most about Dana was her reason for volunteering during that. Her son Nolan was not in her group, however, she was more than happy to help out with anybody and everybody. that even when it didn't include Noam, because she knows that having additional helping hands benefits all students. More adult assistance means students who struggle and students who are advanced and students in need of a little extra bump all benefited. So all our students had the opportunity to have their needs met because of her assistance. In addition to volunteering in the classroom, Dana is always volunteering to send in project supplies and any items that our classrooms need. When Dana comes into school, she always enters Prairie View with a smile and is respectful to our office staff. Our second grade team is grateful for Dana Johnson's time and generosity. She is very deserving, and we thank her for everything. So thank you to Dana. All right. Next up, we have Miss Morgan for Sand Lake.
All right. I just want to start off by thanking everybody for coming tonight. This is one of my favorite nights, just seeing people recognized for the good things they're doing for our school district. I have to keep this short. That was the only way that I was going to get Deb Sinclair here tonight, is if I keep it short. So Deb Sinclair is Sand Lake's Friend of Education for a number of reasons. It was actually a unanimous decision this year from our staff. She shows up every day at Sand Lake if we need a sub in the classroom with kids. As we know, that was a shortage this year, and sometimes we'd call her 10 minutes before the school's day would start, and she would still show up. Also, any downtime she had during the day, she would be going from teacher to teacher asking to cut out things, laminate, tutor students, work on the side if it was during her prep. She'd even take things home at night and cut them out in her free time. She truly is a dedicated person to the school district of Holmen and one of a kind. So Deb Sinclair, thank you for being Sand Lake's Friend of Education.
All right, ready, 3, 2. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Miss Striegel representing Viking Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. And first, I'd like to say congratulations to all our friends of education. It truly is an honor learning about all your help and support in our schools. Our friend of education this year is Jenny Keir. Jenny and her husband Adam have 3 children, McKenna, Rex, and Taggart, who are in grades 7, 6, and 2. They have all either gone or are currently attending Viking, and Jenny has been volunteering at Viking practically all of those years. She has been an active member of our PTO, helping out with our family fun nights, young author nights, concert receptions, our script card sales, and most recently, our bingo books and bites. In addition, Jenny has volunteered her time in our classrooms reading with students or helping them with their letters or numbers. She has helped in our PE department many times throughout the years with activities such as outdoor pursuits units, field days, and fun runs. She's happy to assist students with anything from putting on skis or snowshoes, even getting out there and snowshoeing, handing out ribbons, or lending a hand with anything needed. She is quick to volunteer and is willing to help in whatever capacity we need her. For these reasons, Jenny Keir is our Vikings Friend of Education.
All right, and then last but not least, we have Holmen Public Preschool, and Amy Gosh is going to share our Friend of Education. Thanks, Amy, for being here.
All right.
The 4K program would like to recognize Krista Mikschel as the Holman Public Preschool's 2021-2022 Friend of Education. Krista's son Ethan attended 4K this past school year. Krista went above and beyond what was expected of a parent for the entire school year. Here are some ways she contributed to and enriched her son's classroom and our program. In October, when we were learning about spiders, Krista created a sensory experience that included corn and spider rings and even completed it with a water spout. This gave us a great opportunity to connect our learning to a nursery rhyme, build vocabulary, and practice rhyming. Most importantly, the students had hours of fun cooperating and playing in the sensory table. In December, Krista volunteered to help students create and decorate gingerbread houses out of milk cartons. Before coming in for this activity, she picked up a supply of milk cartons from school. She glued and spray painted them in order to have a paint that would adhere to the carton, and once they were dry, she provided stickers to the students so that they could decorate their gingerbread house. They were so excited to bring them home, and we're sure many of them will be kept as a holiday decoration for years to come. In February, Krista donated a Pin the 100 game for the 100th day of school celebration. She even sent along 100 pennies in a little bag for the student that got the closest. You should have seen the winner's eyes light up when she was told that she won 100 pennies. She seemed to feel like she had just won the lottery. At the end of the school year, Krista was generous in donating items for our ABC end of the year countdown. She donated packets of seeds for students to plant during one of our game day Fridays in the month of May. The students were so excited to share that their flowers were beginning to grow before the end of the school year. For her son Ethan's birthday, Krista sent a snack to school along with paper plates and napkins to match our theme, as she did every time it was Ethan's turn to bring snack. All the plates and napkins matched the theme that we were learning about. And when Krista discovered that Ethan shared his birthday with another friend in the class, she made sure to have both of their names added to the birthday cake. Throughout the year, Krista showed that she was always thinking about 4K by sending in craft items, construction vehicles to add to the block center, scrubs that could be used for the students in dramatic play, and little notepads to take home during the Read Across America week. We are so thankful to have had Krista as a parent partner during the 2021-2022 school year. Whenever she volunteered, she always had a big smile, and the students really enjoyed being around her. Krista, thank you for your commitment to making learning fun, exciting, and hands-on for the little learners in 4K.
I think she might not be here this evening, so. Well,
I can take care of it.
we can take care of it, so. All right. Do you want a picture of all of them? If all of the Friend of Educations could come up for a picture together, if you are okay with that, and then, and we will give you one more round of applause, so thank you.
I don't know either.
Travis is supposed to tell us.
Let's see what he does.
So I'll transition over to my spot over here now.
And you shut it off because it went blue and then you was gonna be a while.
Sit with me, thank you.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to.
I
don't need to.
No, I think
Kevin
that's.
can.
Oh, someone can come on too. Just grab it. You can bring it to- sit over here.
All right, thank you. Okay, next we'll be moving on to reports and discussion. Dr. Mueller will now lead the presentation of the District Facility Improvement and Operational Referendum Planning Recommendation.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be over here giving you a report this evening. With me here, I have Julie Holman, which we all know is our Executive Director of Finance and Operations, and also Kevin Hickman, who has been working with us from Nexus Solutions through this whole process over many, many months. Okay, just as a review here, in our timeline, we've been at this for quite a while in that, and it just shows you it's been actually coming upon over almost a year here. And we're at the time here in July of 2022. So at our last board meeting, you were presented with the results from Rob from School Perception shared the results from our community survey and that. And just an initial type of recommendation was given to the board. And with that, here tonight, we are still in July of 2022. I am going to give more detail to what that would all be considered and looking for consensus from the board to move forward to start drafting proposed referendum questions for a referendum that would occur in November. So people might be asking, why now? Well, from our comprehensive assessment and long-term facility planning process, and through when we brought our un- and underfunded needs list to the district multiple times, along with input from our administration, staff, and community. Now is the time. We see our buildings, they're aging and they're not getting any newer over time. And we definitely have some things that need attention. We've spent a lot of time, and I'd like to thank our staff, our buildings and grounds, our finance committee. They've spent a lot of time prioritizing our needs. We started out with a long list. And then also our community through the survey really helped us figure out what are the community's priorities, what are our priorities within the district. Also, we'll show you here again, the timing and the finances, the time is right now within the school district of Holmen. And the recommendations you see align with our district dashboard and what we focus on, which is student learning and our staff and our community, health and safety. And then lastly, like I had mentioned already, the recommendation we're bringing forth does align with all the work that has come forward from all the many stakeholder groups. So this should start to look familiar. This was in our survey. This has been brought to you before as a board. Basically, overall, what this is showing is, no matter which option we were to go with, 1, 2, or 3, we are still below our mill rate from 2021. So you could see in 2021, our mill rate was $9.77. No matter what option we would go with, we would still be below that. And you can also see since back in 2013, 14, we have been declining with our tax mill rate over the years. And this is just a review of what was shared in the survey about how much it would cost, the projected annual tax increase would be per every 100,000 of property value. One thing that we did learn from the survey, and I think I'll be talking about it further, is option 1 was very popular with saying, okay, $15 per 100,000 for the year. Being able to work with that and make the improvements seemed very favorable. And option 2 was somewhat favorable, and option 3 was, as we got to the higher dollar amount, it wasn't as favorable, which what we would expect, especially with everything else going on in the economy right now. So just as a review from the last board meeting, a majority of all the respondents supported the operational referendum as described, and I'll talk more about that as we go on. A majority of all the respondents support the district pursuing a capital referendum to support facility needs. Of the options, they most preferred the option 1, which was in the range of around $73.1 million. And they also expressed high satisfaction with the district with several scores above the median, which those are all important details as you as a board make decisions here going forward. So bringing you back to the last board meeting on July 11th, the recommendation was drafting that recurring operational referendum question of $650 annually for the purpose of building maintenance and technology. And that was supported, as we mentioned, by the solid majority of survey respondents. And additionally, we talked about coming up with improvements between the option 1 and option 2 range in determining what those were. So this evening, I am going to show you the details of what was determined. So I'm going to start with Evergreen. So it was very apparent deferred maintenance is a top priority with our aging buildings. So within Evergreen, what we would focus on and what was prioritized was the high priority finishes, casework, cubbies, American Disability Acts, the ADA compliances, and door updates. Also, we have aging kitchen equipment that would need replacement. You'll see within all of our elementaries as we talk inclusive playgrounds and safety surfaces to improve our safety and allow an area for all students to play. Roof replacements, building envelope and window repairs, LED lighting and electrical outlet upgrades. The LED lighting helps definitely in the long term with our energy efficiency in our bills, so savings there. Electrical infrastructure improvements. We have a 1978 elevator that needs repairs and updates. Exhaust fan replacement, water heater conversion to natural gas, create efficiencies. HVAC retrocommissioning. And then the other part, so that's a long list of the main deferred maintenance that would be taken care of. But then to be able to have a more efficient, effective kitchen and receiving addition of 1,730 square feet would occur at Evergreen, and I'll show you a picture of that. And the other part that we have heard from a lot of our community members, and especially parents that attend Evergreen, is to really take a look at the parking lot expansion and traffic flow, especially for safety issues. And then what would happen is there would be remodeling and renovation throughout the building, especially within those areas of that deferred maintenance to improve our student learning spaces. To know the specifics of that, we would involve our staff members and they would work with us on what that design would look like so that we could ensure that the learning spaces really were conducive to their instruction. So with that, here is a sky view of Evergreen. This is actually the front door here. I don't know if you can see my little movement area. So here's the parking traffic flow area that we would have to work with to redevelop something that was more providing a safe pathway. And here you could see where that little kitchen expansion addition would occur in the back here. And then really the building would get the updates that I had shared. So that would be Evergreen. Is there any questions on Evergreen at this point, or okay. So you'll see a lot of the same types of things here. This is Viking Elementary was another one that had high priority finishes, casework, cubbies, ADA and door updates. Also kitchen equipment replacements, a lot of that needs to be updated. And the playgrounds and safety surfaces, roofing and door repairs, LED lighting, electrical. Here you'll see fire alarm system replacement. They have an older system that would need that. Electrical infrastructure improvements. They have a 1972 elevator that would need repairs and updates. Exhaust fan. HVAC improvements, which we are looking at doing those through district funding, and that to help offset some of the expense for the referendum. And then also some retro commissioning. And then also looking at their traffic flow, especially in the 4K area. And then remodeling and renovation would occur throughout the building where the deferred maintenance was occurring. So with that, so really what these Evergreen and Viking, it's really fixing the deferred maintenance, and while we're doing that, kind of giving a refresh and a fresh new look and improving the instructional area for our teaching staff. And here, you can see, maintenance and remodel throughout the whole building, and then just really looking at parking and traffic flow. And we do have land on the backside that we can look at to improve traffic flow and so forth. So we'll be developing what that would look like. And then the middle school. This is one of our larger projects. You'll see here also high priority finishes, casework lockers, also on the list there, kitchen equipment, site signage. We would need some ADA updates as they're doing deferred maintenance repairs, building envelope and door repairs, LED lighting, electrical infrastructure. Here we need a whole fire alarm and fire protection upgrades. This is the building that actually houses our hub for all of our technology in the district. An emergency generator addition is a dire necessity, so we would be able to add that. So that way, when we would have an outage, we wouldn't go, we'd have good backup. Heating and control system conversions, air handling unit and ventilation upgrades, exhaust fans, water piping, HVAC retro commissioning. Now, this is the part that is reconstruction of the original 1955 wing. So that was the old Viking Elementary. That's about 37,000 square feet, and I'll show you a picture of where that would be. And then remodeling and renovation throughout the building. So when you look here at the middle school, here, this is the main street here in front of the building. And so off to the side of the building closest over to, I guess you could say over by Subway or towards the BGC area, there is this section in the back of the building is the first part of the building, because as you know, this building has had many additions to it. So a big part of this would be to basically take that down and reconstruct that. And so it'd be new and fresh. But then also, as we're doing the deferred maintenance throughout the building, we would also then be doing extensive remodeling and renovation to really improve the flow throughout the building. Because we also, a lot of times here, it's like a maze when you go into that middle school. So that way what we were talking about is you walk in the entry, and then you could actually tell where you're going and see where to go instead of having to follow the signs. But a lot of that in the design, staff would be a part of that to make sure it's conducive to the needs of the students. And then the last part of the proposal here is to ensure that we have consistent and offer the same opportunities across all of our elementary schools. We would also have the inclusive playground and safety surfaces. And here's just an example of what a safety surface looks like so that all students could then access the playgrounds and be together out there. And then the STEM lab, what this is, it just shows you an area where students really get to explore. So kind of talking about converting our so-called computer labs into more of a up-to-date area where STEM, which is science, technology, learning could happen in that environment, which would be something that we would look at to have consistent across all elementary schools. So is there any questions thus far on any of the projects, buildings? Otherwise, we can finish up our presentation and then you can ask questions at the end. But I just wanted to see.
Sure, I have one question.
Okay.
I guess, first of all, thank you for sending the comments to the board from the survey. That was really appreciative. I really saw, I guess, two main themes stand out from that survey. And one was to just really focus on safety and learning. And the other one was, there was a fair amount of comments regarding the middle school. Mm-hmm. So I guess based on those comments, could you explain a little bit more on why we are not looking at building a new middle school and why we are choosing to renovate the current middle school?
Yeah, no, definitely. That is definitely a great question because I know that's out there. I know there's a sign out by Prairie View that says future middle school. Well, that sign was there when I arrived in 2015. It's been there a long time. That came from planning from years ago. The district was having increased enrollment, and that was, they secured land for, as the enrollment kept increasing, it was to build a second middle school when it would be needed. Well, what we found happen is the enrollment basically became more steady in that, and there wasn't the need for a second middle school. Also out on that land, if we were to build a middle school, because some people might say, well, why wouldn't you build a new middle school out there and then do something with the current middle school? The size of the land out there, it would have to be multiple stories, and we wouldn't be able to have the facilities on site. We would still have to use the facilities at the current middle school or at the high school, which would be difficult because the high school uses their facilities with the high school students pretty consistently. So there would be some challenges. And also, if we were to build a middle school at that other site, back in the time when we talked about it, there would have probably had to been some grade configurations if we were to grow to that size. But what we're finding is our projections are not showing the need for that at this point in time. Another part is at our current location, knowing that we can rebuild part of that building that desperately needs that, but then also the renovation that can occur, we can produce for half the price what needs to be done. A new middle school is around what was shared.
Thank you. In today's dollars, a new middle school to essentially replicate the square footage you've got there would be roughly 76 million. And that could go higher depending on any additional land acquisition or infrastructure costs associated with it. So as Chris said, it's about double what the current proposed investment would be at your middle school.
And with all the renovations taking place in Viking and Evergreen and the middle school, what is the expected longevity of these renovations? How long before we're going to have to do something again?
Yeah. So I saw with the middle school, 25 to 30 years at the earliest is what I was, told. I'll let the experts speak more.
Yeah, it's always hard to crystal ball that, right? Because there's going to be a different board, likely different administrators by that point with potentially different needs. But in theory, yes, 25 to 30 years is minimum what we'd look to in terms of the extent and quality of the remodeling that would take place there and the reconfiguration of existing space. I would expect it would go beyond that, but 25 to 30 years would be a good target.
Any questions from other board members?
Okay. All right, we'll move on then. Are we okay to move on? Okay, so just kind of finishing up the presentation here, I wanted Kevin to share a little bit about what's going on in our economy, which many of you are aware of.
Absolutely. So it's an interesting time, as you know, if you do any grocery shopping or pump any gas. But when it comes to construction, in a typical year, we look at about 5 to 7% inflation that we factor into our budgets. And the amount of inflation we've been factoring up to this point into budgets has pretty much held true. What we're finding, though, in the last 4 to 6 weeks, on the left side there, you can see three of our bids, all different scopes, but essentially the same result: playground, a greenhouse, and then a school project with significant remodels and additions similar to Holman. They all came in over budget, and obviously that's never a goal. But as Chris said, things are going on in the world right now. So how do we look at how we're going to react to that? If you look at statewide, it's a challenge for many school projects right now. Not to pick on anybody in particular, but Neenah High School, it's been in the media lately. They're already gone to referendum. They're now in bidding, and they're about $14 million over budget. Madison Metro School District, same point in their process, about $28 million over budget. And state of Wisconsin, at the higher education level, is increasing budgets on 3 of their university projects by over 20%. And they just announced that within the last few weeks. Our essential paper of record, or however you want to say it, engineer news record, though, in our industry right now, they're estimating 13% annual inflation growth for construction this year. And I think the hope would be, it's important to point out that your project, should you go to referendum in November, most of them won't be bidding at the earliest till about a year from now. So our hope would be inflation moderates by that point, but we still think you ought to, within your current budgets, address that risk, which is what the district has done. So.
Thank you, Kevin. And with that, that leads into our next slides. So what you saw tonight was option one. That was part of that community survey that got much support. We'll be able to support some of those option two items as we move forward with the district budget and working through some of our funding and so on that we have talked about. But with inflation and with getting everything within that option one, the total district-wide project came in, when we did the numbers, at 76 million, a little over 76 million. With our project funding, we can put 1.3 million towards that. It would bring down a referendum amount projected to be around 74.5 million. So that would put us not too far over the supported 73.1 million, but yet we would still be able to accomplish quite a bit with a whole middle school renovation and deferred maintenance and Viking and two of our elementaries that are in need, which were the top priority items through the whole comprehensive facility study, and still start to look at and addressing some of those within option two. And we over time, I think time will tell as to how much more we can do as a district on those other parts of the survey that we heard people were interested in us addressing. And also, as you see there, it would be approximately, I mean, we're just projecting right now. If we went to referendum for the capital referendum of 74.5, it's projected at $18 per 100,000 in the house value, or $1.50 per month. That's not finalized, but projected. So what we're looking for tonight is just consensus from the board. If we could move forward with kind of drafting two resolution referendum questions. One would be in preparing it for an operational referendum for the amount not to exceed $650,000 annually, which that would then provide ongoing for building maintenance and technology, because once we redo and build these beautiful facilities, we want to keep them in that shape. And then the second is the capital referendum to what I presented this evening in the details for the Viking, Evergreen Middle School, and then the smaller projects at Sand Lake and Prairie View. So our next step is, depending if you say tonight and agree that it's okay to move forward with this, we would work with Nexus, continue that, PMA and our legal counsel to prepare those draft resolution questions. And then we would give you a draft before the board meeting in August to take a look at. And assuming there was no changes, we would bring them to the meeting for hopefully your approval, or August 22nd. And the deadline for approving those is August 30th to ensure that you could go to a referendum if you so choose for November 8th. Do you have anything to add?
The only thing I was going to add is that through some conversations today, we found out that bonds are sold in 5,000 increments, which I forgot. And so the question number 2 would probably be not to exceed $74,750,000 or $74,745,000. So that might look slightly different when you see the questions presented, just so that we can meet the bond sale increments required.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
I would, as is my nature, challenge the numbers a little. The referendum came up and the number 1 got the most support. Each person on the survey, they each get 1 vote? Correct. 1 vote, okay. Then the number 1 got the most support. My challenge is that if, I would support the number 2 choice, and the reason being is if, let's say, number 1, the number 1 choice has, say, 1,500 supporting that, and number 2 has 1,000, number 3 has 1,000. Number 3 is, if the vote comes up, number 2 or 3 is going to certainly move down to 2. If they approve 3, they're going to approve 2, right? So that would make it overwhelming majority for number 2. I don't think people are going to move up, which means if the number 1 people, there'll be a few people in number 1 that supported number 1, that will move up and support number 2 because they're probably on the fence. But that makes it tough to get to number 3 because both groups would have to move up. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't support number 2 if you combine the people that supported those 2 questions, the numbers of those 2 questions. It's probably twice as large as the number that supported number 1 because it wasn't like 60 or 70% difference in the numbers. It was like 6 or 7% if I remember right. So I'm assuming that number 3 voters for another 3 option would move down to number 2. And then some of the number 1s would move number 2 because they're on the fence. So I think that we could support number 2 and if you get number 2 passed as easily as we could number 1. So I think we should maybe consider that and push it on a little farther with a little more explanation to the people out there. We could convince some of the 1s to move over. And certainly, like I said before, certainly I think the 3s would move down to 2. I was glad to see the continuous maintenance, 650,000. It makes sense. And if we go up to number 2, we're still not reverting back to the higher mill rates we had 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. We're still below that $12, the magic $12 mark that I drew in the sand a long time ago, keep it below $12. We still wouldn't be back up to that number if we passed number 2. So my support would be number 2 for those reasons. I think the math is misleading when you say that option number 1 had the most support. That's not true. I think what is true is that number 2 and number 3, with 3 coming down, would have the most support. That's my position.
Thank you, Gary.
Yep.
And just as a refresher, the option 2 had adding kitchen equipment at Prairie View, updating interior finishes at Prairie View and Sand Lake in the high school, such as floors, lighting, and improving HVAC efficiencies, addressing remaining ADA compliance at Sand Lake and areas of the high school not renovated in 2018. That would mean that construction would occur for that compliance to happen. And then replacing the high school roof sections in the old, so there was, in the past high school referendum, there was the older section of the high school was not part of that referendum. We renovated, updated, and did the addition on the other part of the building. So that is deferred maintenance that was on there. So those were the items. And then here, Kevin, I'll let you.
I think it's a good point to make, Gary. I think it's a good question to ask. I'll just remind everybody, although Rob from School Perceptions gave the presentation last time, of a few things that he pointed out, so you guys can consider that as you're discussing. If you remember in the survey, they essentially asked, would you support option 1, option 2, option 3, or would you support essentially any of the options, right? And what Rob told us last time, although he didn't exactly present it this way, I think it came up in Q&A, was you could essentially look at adding 2 numbers together. The first number being the group that would support any of the options, the second number being the group that would support either option 1, option 2, or option 3. And Gary's certainly right. If you're going to support option 3, generally you would support option 2 or support option 1. Generally, it doesn't go in the reverse, though. So option 1, there will be some percentage of that, I can't tell you the number, but some percentage of that wouldn't support option 2. And essentially what Rob, I believe he answered last time was, and this is why the board, I think, directed the district come back with a recommendation in a range, was you certainly have a great deal of support, greater than majority support at option 1 when you add those numbers together. At option 2, you're getting a little closer to what he would consider being a situation where you may have at or slightly below majority support. Certainly a lot of districts look at that and say they can, with good communication in the community, demonstrate the need and go ahead and get that support. But generally, I just would advise you again, look at the data. And one thing I think Rob pointed out to you last time was certainly people pay attention to the scope within these individual options. There's no question. But if you gave them one thing they certainly pay attention to, it's going to be that overall tax impact. In other words, how does it affect my pocketbook if I'm a taxpayer? So in that case, I'll just jump back for you. And Julie's probably got similar numbers. It was one of the slides we showed tonight. But option one, again, at 73.1 million was about a $15 annual tax increase. Option two was about a $35 annual tax increase. So about a $20 delta in between those two. What Rob would tell you, because I've asked him this question, is he can't say that's going to make or break things one way or the other. Yeah, he can't give you that based on the data. But he certainly would tell you that risk goes up for every $1 million in addition you choose to invest and ask for the taxpayers to support. So just some things to keep in mind there. May or may not help clarify anything for you, but those are just some things to remember about what Rob said.
I would argue that $20 for what we're going to get for that money is minimal. And I'd also argue that if we had put up two choices and split the three choices into two and divided number two in half, number one and number two, I would contend there'd be a major majority for number one. So I don't know why we wouldn't consider adding the number two to the one. I think that we should push the envelope a little bit and get more of what we need. Is all I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
But I would really appreciate everybody to consider that. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments, or how do you feel about option one versus option two? I do recall through in the presentation last meeting that when we looked at the non-parent group, which I believe was like 75% of the folks voting, that it became more apparent why we were choosing option one over option two when we looked at that group alone. So I'm in favor of moving forward with option one and not taking that risk. So
It's what, about a 10% increase? 73 million to 82 million? Not a large.
So the numbers on the screen, Gary, don't include the additional inflationary percentage that has been added
Yeah.
as well. And so if you're looking at option two, we have to add more for inflation contingency as well.
Yeah.
Well, the percentage would be the same, because you'd add the same inflation numbers in number one. So the percentage increase numbers would be the same.
Yeah. So when I go to the recommendation that we're bringing forward to the board tonight, this includes, when we brought forward the options in the survey, we weren't taking into consideration that inflationary piece, the additional expense for inflation. So we really are hoping to make sure that we can get the middle school and Evergreen and Viking projects taken care of. We feel that's a very high priority and needed for our students and staff and for our community right now, and felt with the inflation and not knowing the uncertainty of that maybe not take as much risk. It would be safer to go with this option and this amount. It doesn't mean that down the road that we couldn't take care of some of those other items, because I see what you're saying. You know, roofs are important. We need to make sure we take care of those roofs because we don't want to have leaks and so on. But, you know, so that's the tough part, is where do you feel most comfortable to hope, you know, to bring success for the students, that they have the facilities they need to learn in. So
When the increase in the inflation numbers talk about that increase, it would only be about $5 a year on the year-end tax bill. It'd be about $5 a year, $6 a year. I don't think that's substantial.
So I guess as a board, I just need to know what direction you would like us to go. What I am hearing is, it sounds like you definitely want us to draft some resolution questions. I think it is would you like us to move forward with what we brought this evening, or would you want us to add any additional items to that? I guess is just the questions we would have, so that we know what to bring back moving forward. So if we could get that direction from you this evening, that would be wonderful. So.
Personally, I'm comfortable with what you've brought forward. I appreciate the additional information. And I would, I mean, my opinion would be to go with this option 1.
Okay.
Chris and Barb?
I appreciate the work that was done because I know 2 weeks ago when it was mentioned that it was going to be somewhere between. I think that this end 74 is closer to option 1. And I'm most concerned about that 22% of our voting members that don't have children, family in the district saying they wouldn't support anything. I think if this is laid out, I think we have a better chance of bringing them on board.
Okay.
You're in agreement, Chris?
Yes, my support is.
All right, so does the board, do we have consensus as a board for moving forward with drafting questions and moving forward with the resolution as this?
Okay. All right. Thank you for all your input. I appreciate it. And we will then bring that back on August 8th. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Julie. All right. Next up, I invite Director of Nutrition Services, Mike Gasper, to present the 2022-2023 school meal prices. This item will appear on tonight's consent agenda.
Good evening. I wish I had the same news I had last year when I came forward and was able to tell everybody we were going to have free meals for everybody. Unfortunately, at the end of June, Congress passed the Keep Kids Fed Act, which essentially extended all the waivers that were in place that allowed us to perhaps not follow the meal pattern when we couldn't find a product, things of that nature. But they did not approve funding for free meals for everyone. So we do have to go back to a paid structure. One of the things that happened last year, we served over 100,000 more lunches than we did the year before, and our total meals served was over 200,000 between breakfast and our parochial schools and different things that we do. So we did financially quite well. So one of the things we'd like to propose this year, normally our free and reduced kids have to pay 30 cents for breakfast and 40 cents for lunch. We would like to propose that we use some of our fund balance, approximately $16,500, and not charge those students for those meals. We think that will be a real lifeline to those families that are struggling to make ends meet. Last time we actually raised prices was the 2017-2018 school year. However, we're expecting well over 15% inflation in food costs. In fact, we're seeing some of that now. I was telling Julie earlier today that we got our first email today with a whole bunch of products that are being discontinued that we were counting on. So it's going to be another wild ride as far as procurement goes in general. What we would like to do, basically, though, is try and keep our lunch prices, breakfast and lunch prices at a good value and raise them as minimally as possible. What we're proposing for breakfast is $2 across the board, K-12, $2.50 for adults. And then for lunch, K-5, $3, and K-12, $3.25, and adult meals would be $4.25. I can tell you that compared to neighboring districts about our size, we're still the lowest as far as what we would be charging for those meals. One district's as high as $4.85 for adult meals and $3.45 for lunch. So you can see that we're still quite a bit lower than most of these districts. So that's our proposal. We hope that that can be included in the consent agenda tonight so we can get this information out to our public so they know what they'll be paying for meals. Any questions? Very good. Thank you.
All right, next up, Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Julie Holman, will present the 23-24 Budget Development Calendar, which will appear on the August 8th consent agenda.
So this is just an annual event that we do at the board meeting to share the process of budget development with the board and the community. It does look a little different this year. It's usually multiple pages, and I put it more into a flow chart for a single page snapshot of the process. So you just start in the top right corner, which is actually started today, the audit field work. So the auditors will be in the office all week upstairs. And then this is like the end of last year's fiscal year. And then we move into planning for not the current, but next budget cycle, beginning July 1 of 2023. So this just includes all kind of the major steps, not the detail behind each event, but gives you an idea of what happens when. Most things do come to the board. Other things are just occurring with our reporting to the Department of Public Instruction. Other things like monitoring what the legislative session is happening, what's happening in Madison. We monitor that as soon as they get started up until when they are done with their session. So we often report on education bills and other things that are being discussed and what that might mean for our budget in Holmen. And it just goes through the process. So again, this is actually for the 23-24 budget process development. And then each one of those includes the person or department responsible for that activity. So any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Executive Director of Student Services Jill Mason will now present several 660301 agreements, all of which will appear on the August 8th consent agenda.
Good evening, everyone. I think I'm just going to open the issue paper for you, if I can just start. I have so many of them in here, I can't find the issue paper. There we go. This is for one of them. We don't contract. We have a physical therapist that we hire. We contract with Onalaska. They pay for a day, and we have her, the individual, 4 days a week. And so we do this under a 660301 agreement with Onalaska, so that we can have a full-time employee and then share those costs with Onalaska. So each year we come to the board with the same agreement. This year we're able to continue that agreement where we, again, have her 4 days and Onalaska has her 1 day. So things haven't changed for that agreement. So that's what this one is for. And nope. Stacy, do you remember what number that is?
It should be all the way towards the top. It's only 9.4 and not 9.4 in the letter.
I think it's the one you've got.
Yeah, it's that group you were just by.
This one, maybe? Ha! Look at it. There's so many 660301 agreements. So we use these agreements for our 3 transition programs, for Project Live, Project Bridge, and Project Search. We have districts such as GET, La Crosse, Independence, and Melrose Minduro this year contracting with us for our transition services for students. And so what we do is we do an agreement with the district and then we estimate out the costs. We do that based on the current open enrollment costs for students who are in regular education. We don't need to make money on these situations, but we really want to make sure it's accessible for all students to access. If we do have situations where students might need a one-on-one EA or some other services, we do then work with the school district to add those costs into these agreements. So far, we're able to support all of our students. So some of our students will be going to Project Search, some will be going to Project Live, and some will be going to Bridge. Any questions about those? All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda items. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background materials on each item and has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it'll be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided.
So moved.
Chris? Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, motion by Chris, seconded by Bridget. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. All right, moving on to the board debrief. First, I will call upon board members and ask you to present any comments or committee reports you have. Then this evening, we're going to start with Alan.
First, I don't know if it's close enough. First, I'd just like to thank the Friends of Education. It's always heartwarming to hear about community involvement in our schools because it helps the students feel valued and also it just helps the teachers and the administration, all that. But I also think it helps the community because it makes it feel attached to schools. It doesn't make it feel like, oh, what are they teaching kids at school nowadays? I don't know what's going on. And so it's always just good for parents and members of the community to know what's going on in the schools and to help out with that. Also, I just like to acknowledge that a lot of our sports teams, like the Holman dance team and the Holman football team, have begun training for the upcoming season. So hopefully they'll be able to bring a lot of pride to the school district. But besides that, nothing else.
Okay, Gary, you're next.
I'd like to thank all the Friends of Education, too. They're very special people, and they put forth a lot of effort. And August 18th, we have a first football game. We never had ours till, I think, like first week in September.
Early.
So that's, yeah, it's against Chippewa Falls here at home, so that'll be nice. Of course, we have volleyball starting, girls golf, the band, the dance teams. There's all kinds of basketball camps going on and football camps going on. So like I say every year, be careful out there driving. It's going to be chaos for a while, so watch out for a little bit, especially the new kids. I have a couple of granddaughters going to be freshmen this year, so we're going to have to watch out for those guys. But yeah, it's going to be a busy year. I think it's going to be really enjoyable. Got a great bunch of kids and a really good bunch of coaches. I think it's going to be fun to watch. That's all I have.
Okay, moving on to Chris.
No, just the Friends of Education night's always one of my favorite nights of the school district calendar. So just thank you to all those folks that were recognized tonight, and that's very much appreciated.
Okay, Bridget?
Yeah, I would also agree. It was wonderful to acknowledge all those Friends of Education and just to know that there's like amazing individuals in this community. I did want to say, I think I recently looked at open positions on our district website, and I think there's like around 21 open positions related to co-curricular activities for our students. And so anyone watching tonight, I just really implore you to consider applying for those positions because I think those activities are so incredibly important for our students. So that's all I have.
Okay, Barb.
I would also just like to thank all of our Friends of Education. I appreciate the involvement. I appreciate their dedication to our schools and having them in there so that they can be an active part in our children's education.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask the board to begin thinking about what committee you would like to be on starting this next school year. We have 4 committees. We have Buildings and Grounds, Finance, Personnel and Governance, and the Student Achievement and Learning Committee. So descriptions about all these committees are on the district website if you want to learn more about them. And I'm expecting Stacy at some point will be sending an email out to board members asking where their interest lies. We'll go from there, so. And the committees usually start up in either September or October timeframe. Also, the board's going to be having a board workshop on August 15th. The primary agenda item for that night's going to be discussing our dashboard and sharing our goals. Another item will be discussing a bit of a more formal process for board committee report outs, what we do here at the meeting, and how we might want to go about doing that. So if there's any other agenda items that anybody's interested in having at that workshop, please send me an email or call or get a hold of me somehow and let me know, and I'll get it on the agenda. And lastly, I also want to say congratulations to all the Friends in Education. In my personal opinion, I think having the community involved in our public education is how it should be. And I just thank you for going above and beyond in everything that you do and have done in the last year. So, all right. So upcoming meeting schedule on August 8th at 5:30 p.m. We will be conducting candidate interviews, and that'll be followed by the board meeting at 7 o'clock. Again, on the 15th will be our board workshop. On the 22nd will be the next board meeting. And then on the 23rd will be the back-to-school kickoff. Did you have something?
No, and
Okay.
all board members are invited to our annual kickoff for the school year. If you're more than welcome to come. So it's a fun event.
Yes, it's at 8.
8 in the morning.
8
Yep.
a.m.
Actually,
So-
7 o'clock for breakfast, so
Okay.
come join. August 23rd, it's a Tuesday, so. Yep.
Okay. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board at this time? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. All right, Chris has moved and Bridget seconded to adjourn the meeting at 8:17 p.m. Motion carried. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.